6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lal Mallavarachi, assisted by Sanjay Paladenia, and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. The World Bank is set to approve $700 million for Sri Lanka next week. The Prime Minister instructs officials to take necessary steps to direct school leavers towards vocational training. No final government decision yet regarding the domestic credit optimization. 61 Sri Lankans will leave for Israel today to be employed as caregivers. Foreign news, the US and China pledged to stabilize tense relationship after talks. In sports, 2 more ICC World Cup qualifier matches will be played today. News in detail. The World Bank is likely to approve $700 million in budgetary and welfare support for Sri Lanka at its next board meeting on June 28, sources told Reuters, the biggest funding tranche for Sri Lanka since the IMF deal in March. The economy of the country of 22 million is expected to shrink 2% this year before returning to growth next year, the government estimates, following last year's record contraction of 7.8% after foreign exchange reserves hit record lows. The International Monetary Fund approved a bailout of nearly $3 billion in March, which Sri Lanka expects will bring additional funding of up to $4 billion from the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and other multilateral agencies. Of the proposed World Bank funding, $500 million will be for budgetary support and is likely to come in 2 tranches of $250 million each, one of the sources from the World Bank said. All 4 sources from the World Bank and Sri Lanka Finance Ministry sought anonymity as they were not authorized to talk to the media. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena instructed the government officials to take immediate measures to ensure that the school leavers are engaged in vocational training, a prerequisite for employment opportunities during the Regional Development Committee meeting held at the Maharagama Divisional Secretariat yesterday. The Prime Minister instructed the officials to prepare a proper data report on the children who drop out of school and direct them to free training courses. He further explained that if children who leave school at the end of GCE O-level and GCE A-level exams do not have further education, their personal development may be neglected and social problems may also be created. Thus, it is essential that the children who are registered in the school up to the ordinary level or up to the advanced level should be recorded at the relevant divisional secretariat, and that is imperative to find out the way in which these children omit the exam and for what reason they do so. During a press conference held yesterday at the Presidential Media Centre, Minister of State for Finance, Mr. Shahan Semasinghe, addressed the issue of false information being disseminated by various parties in the country regarding the domestic debt optimization program. He emphasized that the government has not made a final decision on this matter. Minister Semasinghe further emphasized the sensitivity surrounding the optimization of domestic debt and assured that the government is approaching this issue with utmost responsibility. Minister Shahan Semasinghe reaffirmed the government's dedication to achieving improved optimization in order to uphold the stability of Sri Lanka's banking and financial system. His remarks were made in line with the conference's theme, Collective Path to Stable Country. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. 61 Sri Lankans will leave for Israel today to be employed as caregivers. This opportunity has been granted by the agreement made between the Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau and the Population and Immigration Authority of Israel. So far, 384 Sri Lankans have left for Israel to work as caregivers. 16 persons leaving for Israel were given air tickets by the Minister of Foreign Employment, Manusha Nanakara, at the Minister of Foreign Employment recently. The annual Asala Maha Perahara of the Ruhunu Maha Kataragama Devalaya began last night. It will be held until the 4th of July for 15 days on a grand scale. The final Maha Perahara will be held on the Asala full moon Poya day. Approximately 1.5 million devotees are expected to take part in the festival. The Central Environmental Authority says irregular disposal of garbage by the pilgrims usually results in 1,700 tons of solid waste in the the area during the festive season each year. Therefore, a number of programs will be implemented to minimize the environment pollution in the area. The authority requests the devotees to adhere to the proper procedure for waste disposal. And that ends local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Agriculture Minister Mahinda Amaravira said that it has been confirmed based on the observations made by the Ministry of Agriculture that there will be a surplus of 300,000 metric tons of rice in Sri Lanka after the next Maha season. The minister was speaking at a program to make Sitinamalua village a youth agribusiness village. According to the sources, it has been confirmed that there will be a good harvest in this Yala season. Also, a cropping plan has been prepared to achieve good paddy harvest in the next Maha season as well. The monthly requirement of rice in the country is 200,000 metric tons. Accordingly, the annual requirement of rice is 2.4 million metric tons. It will be possible to achieve a yield of 2.7 million metric tons of rice from this year's Yala season and next Maha season's paddy harvest. Accordingly, if there is an excess of 300,000 metric tons of rice, the Minister of Agriculture has prepared plans regarding the steps to be taken for that rice harvest. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
On to Watchlight. State Minister for Transport Lasantha Alagiwana says a total of 8,875 road accidents were reported and 1,043 lives were lost due to the accidents reported during the past 6 months, with the increase in the number of vehicles operating on the road. Most of these accidents were caused by buses, motorcycles and three-wheelers. According to the statistics issued by the police, the number of vehicle accidents and deaths had considerably increased by 18th of June this year. Accordingly, 902 fatal accidents, 1,856 fatal injuries, 3,951 minor injuries and 2,096 damages were reported during the past 6 months. Therefore, the government and all government-assisted institutions are currently paying attention to the cause of these accidents. Driving under the influence of alcohol and using drugs was identified as the main aspect of the accidents and as the cause of the increase in accidents. And that was Watchlight. Now on to world news. The headlines. The US and China pledged to stabilize tense relationship after talks. Ukraine makes steady progress attack across the 1,000-kilometer Russia front line. Titanic tourist submersible goes missing with search underway. The US and China have pledged to stabilize their tense relationship following the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's 2-day visit to Beijing. Mr. Blinken met China's President Xi Jinping for talks yesterday, restarting high-level communications between the rival superpowers. Mr. Xi said they had made progress, while Mr. Blinken indicated that both sides were open to further talks. But the top US diplomat made clear that there remained major differences. Relations between Beijing and Washington have plummeted in the wake of a Trump-era trade war, Beijing's assertive claims over Taiwan, and the shooting down of an alleged Chinese spy balloon over the US earlier this year. 2 weeks since the counteroffensive began, Ukraine is making modest but steady progress in 3 areas of attack across the 1,000-kilometer front line. Troops are launching probing attacks, while most Ukraine's forces are being held in reserve, waiting for a big enough opening in Russian defense to launch a main attack and try to recapture land in the south of the country. The fighting has been hard, with heavy casualties on both sides and opposing armies claiming upper hand. Ukraine's advance in southern Donetsk has shuttered, but continues. The BBC joined the 68th Jaeger Brigade as its combat forces sought to expand their control eastward of the recently regained Bahodansk. The submersive craft used to take people to see the wreck of the Titanic has gone missing in the Atlantic Ocean with its crew on board, sparking a major search and rescue operation. 2 firm Ocean Gate, which runs $250,000, a seat expeditions to the wreck, said it was exploring all options to get the crew back safely. It said government agencies and deep-sea firms were helping the operation. The Titanic sank in 1912 and lies some 12,500 feet beneath the waves. And back to the headlines of the world news. The US and China pledges to stabilize tense relationship after talks. Ukraine makes steady progress attacks across the 1,000-kilometer Russia front line. And Titanic tourist submersible goes missing with search underway. And that ends World News.
Development News is brought to you by
Vacancies for women from Deshakti Lanka for housemaids in Kuwait, Oman and Saudi Arabia for ages 23 to 58 years. Contact number 037 7500 500.
The Ministry of Transport has decided to introduce bus transport service without conductors from the 1st of July. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunadana said the SLTB expects to put an end to the pilfering of revenue by conductor and also operational costs of buses with a new mechanism. SLTB buses on all expressways will run without conductors from the 1st of July as a pilot project. Accordingly, tickets will be issued only at the beginning of January for SLTB buses plying on the expressways. And that was Development News.
Vacancies for women from Deshakti Lanka for housekeepers, home cooks, caretakers and home nurses in Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia and Singapore for ages 23 to 57 years. Salaries starting from 156,000 rupees. Interviews with foreign agents are now on. Come whether you have a passport or not. Branches, Colombo, Kurunagala, Anuradhapura and Matara. Contact number 037 7500 500.
On to sports news. Sri Lanka cricket team has won the World Cup qualifier match against the United Arab Emirates by 175 runs. Batting first, Sri Lanka scored 355 runs for the loss of 6 wickets. 4 Sri Lankan players were able to score half centuries. Ali Nasir took 2 wickets. In reply, United Arab Emirates were only able to score 180 runs in 39 overs. Wanindu Hasranga took 6 wickets for 24 runs, his career best. 2 more qualifier matches between Zimbabwe and the Netherlands and Nepal versus United States will be played today. And that was sports news.
Go ekakiyana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyamata set wenna as wahagena dakapu gina habe karanna youth ekata niyamata set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB I Am, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Trade Minister Nalin Fernando has placed wheat flour on a specified goods list of the Consumer Affairs Authority by a Gazette notice. The CAA is the agency that usually imposes price controls and triggers shortages and black markets in essential foods and other items. Wheat flour has been put on a specified goods list because it is deemed essential for the lives of the general public. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekakiyana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyamata set wenna as wahagena dakapu gina habe karanna youth ekata niyamata set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB I Am, a plan for your dream.
On to economic news. The Agalavatta plantation said it has replanted 2,600 hectares with high-yielding clones since it has taken over by the Sri Lanka Damro Group and is planning to plant another 1,000 hectares this year. In order to support the rubber replanting program, the plantations has set up a network of rubber nurseries and has established 400,000 seedlings in 6 regional nurseries to supply healthy plants. Damro Group is a consumer durables retailer and also a producer and exporter of furniture. And that was economic news.
Weather report.
Several spells of showers will occur in the western Sabaragamuwa Central and the northern province and in the Galle and Matara, Puttalam districts. A few showers will occur in the north central province and in the Kurunagala district And showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara and Batticaloa district during the evening or night. Strong winds about 40 to 45 kilometers per hour can be expected at times on the western slopes of the Central Hills, the North Central province and in the Puttalam, Hambantota and Trincomalee district. And that was the weather report, and prior to concluding this news broadcast, the headlines once again. The World Bank is set to approve $700 million for Sri Lanka next week. The Prime Minister instructs officials to take necessary steps to direct school leavers towards vocational training. No final government decision yet regarding the domestic credit optimization. 61 Sri Lankans will leave for Israel today to be employed as caregivers. Foreign news, the US and China pledge to stabilize tense relationship after talks. Sports, 2 more ICC World Cup qualifier matches will be played today. And with that, we end this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.